Welcome to Doctrine of War, where we break down the strategy, the technology, and the human will that shape the world's most powerful militaries. And today we journey south, to a continent often underestimated, but never unprepared. A nation surrounded by ocean, forged in isolation, and bound by alliances that reach across the globe. This is the story of how Australia, a country with fewer people than some world cities, built one of the most capable and respected militaries in the modern world. From the red sands of the outback to the deep blue of the Pacific, from F-35s screaming over the horizon to submarines gliding silently beneath the waves, this is not just a defense force. It's a statement. A message to any who might test the peace of the Indo-Pacific. Australia will not be caught unprepared again. Before we dive in, if you're passionate about military history, modern warfare, and the geopolitics shaping the 21st century, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Doctrine of War. Your support helps us build this channel, reach more viewers, and continue creating deep, cinematic analyses of the world's armed forces. Now let's begin. A continent on guard. Australia. Vast, remote, and deceptively peaceful. To most of the world, it's the land of beaches, open skies, and endless distance. But for strategists, that geography tells a different story, one of isolation, vulnerability, and strategic opportunity. Australia has no land borders. Its defense doesn't depend on fences or walls, but on oceans. And yet, that isolation, the very thing that once protected it, has become a double-edged sword in the modern age. In an era of hypersonic missiles, cyber warfare, and long-range strike capabilities, distance offers less protection than ever before. And Australia knows this. For decades, its military posture was built around defense, keeping the homeland secure, relying on the alliance with the United States, and contributing to coalition wars abroad. But now, in the 21st century, that doctrine is shifting. Australia is transforming from a defensive partner into a strategic power, one that can project force, shape regional security, and deter threats across an increasingly tense Indo-Pacific. To understand how this transformation happened, we have to go back to the wars that defined its character and the alliances that cemented its place in the world. The forging of a military identity. The story of Australia's military power begins not in the 21st century, but in the muddy trenches of World War I. In 1915, Australian soldiers, the ANZACs, landed on the shores of Gallipoli. They were young, inexperienced, and thousands of miles from home. Yet they fought with a ferocity and endurance that shocked both allies and enemies. The campaign failed, but a nation was born. From that moment, Australia saw its military not just as defense, but as identity. The ANZAC spirit, courage, mateship, sacrifice, became part of what it meant to be Australian. World War II tested that spirit again. As Japanese forces advanced through the Pacific, Australia found itself suddenly exposed. The bombing of Darwin in 1942, the largest attack ever on Australian soil, was a brutal awakening. It marked the end of isolationism and the beginning of a permanent alliance with the United States. From then on, Australia's defense strategy has been built on two pillars: self-reliance and strategic partnership. The balance between those two ideas defines the Australian military to this day. The structure of power. Modern Australia's military, the Australian Defence Force (ADF), is a tri-service force built for flexibility and rapid deployment. It's small by global standards, around 60,000 active personnel, but its effectiveness lies in integration, training, and technology. Let's break down the backbone of this force, starting with the Royal Australian Air Force (RAF), the jewel of its modernization. The RAF has transformed into one of the most technologically advanced air forces in the world. At its core are F-35A Lightning II stealth fighters, the fifth-generation aircraft that give Australia a decisive edge in air superiority and precision strike. The F-35 isn't just a fighter, it's a flying sensor network, capable of detecting threats hundreds of kilometers away, sharing data with ships, satellites, and ground forces. It's the eyes and ears of the modern ADF. Supporting them are E-7A Wedgetail airborne early warning and control aircraft, providing radar coverage and coordination for joint operations, and KC-30A tankers, allowing fighters to refuel in the air and extend their range deep into the Indo-Pacific. Add in P-8A Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft, the submarine hunters, and the C-17 Globemaster III strategic airlifters, and the RAF becomes far more than a domestic air defense force. It's an expeditionary air arm, capable of deploying anywhere, from humanitarian missions to high-intensity combat. But Australia's air power is only half the story. To project force in the Pacific, it needs a navy that can control vast stretches of ocean, And that's where the Royal Australian Navy, RAN, steps in. The Navy, the silent power. The RAN may not boast the size of the US or Chinese navies, but it punches far above its weight. Its fleet is modern, networked, and tailored for control of sea lanes, the arteries of Australia's trade and security. At the center are the Hobart-class destroyers, equipped with the Aegis combat system. These ships can track and intercept multiple aerial threats simultaneously, creating a protective shield for entire fleets. Then there are the ANZAC-class frigates, soon to be replaced by the next-generation Hunter-class, ships that will bring cutting-edge radar, long-range strike missiles, and enhanced anti-submarine warfare systems. But perhaps the most symbolic vessels of Australia's naval transformation are the Canberra-class amphibious assault ships. These 27,000-ton vessels can carry helicopters, troops, armored vehicles, and humanitarian aid. They're not just ships. They're mobile bases capable of responding to crises across the Indo-Pacific. And beneath the surface lies one of Australia's most strategic advantages, its Collins-class submarines. Silent, long-ranged, and capable of launching cruise missiles, they are the eyes and daggers of the deep. Though aging, they've been upgraded repeatedly and remain highly respected among NATO and Pacific allies. But soon they'll be replaced by something far more advanced. The AUKUS deal, signed between Australia, the United States, and the United Kingdom, will see Australia acquire nuclear-powered submarines, vessels with nearly unlimited range, capable of staying submerged for months. This single decision will catapult Australia into the elite club of nations with nuclear propulsion, fundamentally changing its deterrence power. It's not just a hardware upgrade. It's a strategic revolution. The AUKUS submarines will allow Australia to project power across the Indian and Pacific Oceans, to deter threats far before they reach its shores. And in a region increasingly defined by great power competition, that reach matters. The Army, the ground pulse of power. While the air and sea dominate Australia's geography, its army provides the foundation of adaptability and resilience. The Australian Army is small but professional, around 30,000 regular troops, trained for everything from mechanized warfare to jungle operations and disaster relief. Its structure is built around highly mobile combined arms brigades equipped with modernized M1A1 Abrams tanks, Boxer combat reconnaissance vehicles, and Hawkeye protected mobility vehicles. These aren't static defense tools, they're expeditionary assets designed to move quickly, hit hard, and integrate seamlessly with Allied forces. But the real strength of the Australian Army lies in its elite units, the Special Air Service Regiment, SASR, and the 2nd Commando Regiment. These are among the most experienced special forces in the world, with decades of counterterrorism, reconnaissance, and joint operations experience from Afghanistan, Iraq, and the Pacific. The SASR in particular has a reputation that rivals the US Delta Force or the British SAS. Small teams, operating deep behind enemy lines, capable of calling in airstrikes, sabotaging infrastructure, and gathering intelligence. When Australia needs precision, the SASR answers. These forces form the backbone of Australia's deterrence strategy, agile, elite, and always ready. The new strategic frontier. For most of its modern history, Australia viewed itself as secure, distant from global conflict, protected by the US alliance. But as the Indo-Pacific becomes the epicenter of global competition, Canberra's perspective has changed. No longer can it rely solely on others for defense. The rise of China, the militarization of the South China Sea, and growing tensions over Taiwan have all redefined Australia's security calculus. The government's 2024 National Defence Strategy reflects this new reality, a pivot from distant deployments to national defence through forward projection. This means Australia's military must be able to deter aggression before it reaches its shores, not just react after the fact. It's a shift toward proactive defence, building long-range strike capability, deeper intelligence networks, and tighter interoperability with allies. Central to this shift is technology, drones, cyber warfare, and space defense. Australia's Defence Space Command, established in 2022, ensures it can monitor threats from orbit, from satellite interference to missile launches. Its Cyber Command defends national infrastructure and conducts offensive cyber operations against hostile actors. These aren't side projects. They're now core to Australia's doctrine of survival in the digital age, the alliance that defines everything. At the heart of Australia's defence posture lies its alliance with the United States. Formed under the ANZAC Treaty of 1951, it's one of the most enduring defence partnerships in the world. U.S. Marines rotate through Darwin, joint exercises like Talisman Sabre test interoperability, and American bombers regularly use Northern Australian bases. But what makes this alliance unique is balance. Australia is not a client state. It's a partner, one with its own strategic vision. It brings geography, intelligence, and access to key maritime routes, making it indispensable to America's Indo-Pacific strategy. At the same time, Canberra is cultivating regional ties, with Japan, India, Indonesia, and the Philippines, through frameworks like the Quad. This multi-layered diplomacy allows Australia to play the role of strategic anchor, connecting Western and Asian security systems. In many ways, the Australian Defence Force isn't just defending Australia. It's defending the balance of the Indo-Pacific itself. AUKUS, the submarine pact that changed everything. When the AUKUS agreement was announced in 2021, the world took notice. It wasn't just a defense deal, it was a declaration. Australia was stepping into a new era, one defined by nuclear propulsion, long-range deterrence, and great power responsibility. Under AUKUS, Australia will acquire at least 8 nuclear-powered submarines, developed jointly with the United States and the United Kingdom. The first step, the purchase of Virginia-class submarines from the US in the 2030s. The second, the construction of an entirely new class, the SASR and AUKUS, blending British design, American technology, and Australian production. This program represents more than hardware. It signifies trust. Only a handful of nations, the US, UK, France, China, Russia, and India, operate nuclear submarines. And now Australia will join them. Nuclear propulsion doesn't mean nuclear weapons. These subs remain non-nuclear armed. But what it does mean is reach. They can operate underwater for months, patrol vast distances without surfacing, and carry advanced cruise missiles capable of striking far from home. For Australia, geography has always been both shield and cage. With nuclear-powered subs, that cage breaks open. From the Indian Ocean to the South China Sea, from the Strait of Malacca to the Bismarck Sea, these vessels will give Canberra what it has never had before: persistent, stealthy presence across the Indo-Pacific. But AUKUS is about more than submarines. It's a trilateral framework for advanced defense technology sharing, spanning quantum computing, cyber, AI, hypersonic weapons, and undersea systems. In short, it's a military-industrial revolution for Australia. The ripple effects are profound. Australia's naval shipyards in Adelaide and Osborne are expanding, defense R&D budgets are surging, and local industries are being integrated into a global supply chain once reserved for the superpowers. For the first time in generations, Australia is not just buying defense, it's building it. It's not a client, it's a creator. And with that capability comes influence. The defense industry, forging power at home. If the battlefield of the 21st century is digital, industrial, and high-tech, then Australia knows where it must invest: at home. The Australian government's defense industry strategy aims to transform the nation from a buyer of weapons to a producer of power. Domestic defense companies like Austal, Thales Australia, and BAE Systems Australia are leading the charge. Austal builds patrol boats and offshore vessels, not just for the Royal Australian Navy, but for allies across the Pacific, supporting regional security and influence. Thales Australia manufactures advanced munitions, communication systems, and protected vehicles, ensuring supply chain independence. Meanwhile, BAE Systems manages the construction of the Hunter-class frigates and plays a central role in AUKUS submarine development. This ecosystem is creating something Australia hasn't had in decades: strategic autonomy. Every ship laid down, every missile assembled, every radar design strengthens not just defense, but sovereignty. By 2035, the Australian defense industry is projected to support over 100,000 jobs and inject billions into the economy. But the real victory isn't economic, it's strategic. Because true power isn't measured by what you can buy, it's measured by what you can build. The strike era, Australia's new doctrine. For most of its history, Australia's defense posture was defined by one phrase: defense of Australia. It was a concept born in the Cold War, the idea that Australia only needed to protect its northern approaches and homeland. But today that doctrine is obsolete. In 2024, the government introduced a new national defense strategy emphasizing impactful projection. That phrase might sound subtle, but it represents a seismic shift. It means Australia no longer intends to simply defend itself reactively, it intends to deter, disrupt, and strike if necessary. At the heart of this new doctrine lies long-range firepower. Australia has already begun acquiring high-mobility artillery rocket systems, HIMARS. the same weapon that transformed battlefields in Ukraine. Paired with precision strike missiles, PRSM, these systems can reach targets up to 500 kilometers away, with plans to extend that to over 1,000. Add to that the future long-range anti-ship missile, RASM, for the Air Force and Tomahawk cruise missiles for the Navy, and Australia suddenly possesses a strike range that spans most of the Indo-Pacific. This is deterrence through distance. Instead of waiting for threats to approach, the ADF can neutralize them before they become crises. But what makes this shift even more potent is how it's being integrated through Joint All-Domain Command and Control (JDC2) systems. This means that data from drones, satellites, ships, and aircraft flows seamlessly to commanders, enabling coordinated strikes across air, land, and sea. It's the digital nervous system of Australia's future military. And it's what will make a relatively small force capable of punching far above its weight. Technology and the new frontier of war. In modern conflict, dominance isn't just about ships or tanks, it's about information. Australia is investing heavily in cyber warfare, artificial intelligence, and autonomous systems to ensure it stays one step ahead. The newly formed Cyber Command defends against attacks on critical infrastructure, government systems, and defense networks. But it also has an offensive role, capable of disrupting enemy communications, financial systems, and battlefield networks if deterrence fails. Then there's autonomy, drones in the air, on land, and beneath the sea. Australia's Loyal Wingman program, developed by Boeing Australia, represents one of the most advanced drone initiatives outside the US. The aircraft, now officially known as the NQ-28 Ghost Bat, can fly alongside manned fighters, sharing targeting data or conducting missions independently. It's the first combat aircraft designed and built in Australia in over half a century, a symbol of innovation reborn. The Army, too, is embracing unmanned systems, from ground robots to drone swarms designed for reconnaissance and supply missions in contested zones. Meanwhile, the Navy is testing unmanned underwater vehicles for surveillance and mine countermeasures. In space, the Defense Space Command monitors threats to satellites and develops capabilities for space-based intelligence. Australia understands that the next war might begin not in the ocean, but in orbit. The regional role, a strategic anchor. Australia's military transformation is not just about self-defense. It's about positioning as a central pillar in the Indo-Pacific security architecture. To its north lies Southeast Asia, a region where economic growth meets political fragility. To its east, the vast Pacific Islands, critical for maritime trade and influence. And to its west, the Indian Ocean, now one of the most strategically vital zones on Earth. Australia sits at the intersection of it all. Through partnerships like the Quad with the US, Japan, and India, the Five Eyes Intelligence Network, and the Pacific Step-Up Initiative, Canberra is anchoring a web of alliances that promote stability and contain aggression. In practice, this means constant cooperation. Joint naval drills with Japan, air exercises with the US, cyber defense cooperation with Singapore, and intelligence sharing with the UK. Australia isn't acting alone. It's becoming the connective tissue of an entire regional alliance system. And that makes it more than just a middle power. It makes it indispensable. The Pacific and humanitarian power. There's another dimension to Australia's strength, one that doesn't involve missiles or submarines. It's the soft power of humanitarian response. Every time a cyclone hits the Pacific or an earthquake strikes Indonesia, it's often the Royal Australian Air Force and Navy that arrive first. The Canberra-class amphibious ships, designed for warfare, are equally adept at delivering aid, carrying food, medical teams, and helicopters into disaster zones. This humanitarian reach builds goodwill, strengthens partnerships, and counters influence from rival powers offering aid with strings attached. In many Pacific nations, Australia isn't just a partner, it's a lifeline. This dual capability, to fight and to help, gives the ADF a moral edge in a region where influence is increasingly contested. The challenge is ahead. For all its strengths, Australia's military transformation faces real challenges. Budget constraints are constant. Building nuclear submarines, advanced frigates, and next-gen drones is immensely expensive. Defense spending is expected to exceed 2.4% of GDP by 2030, but political shifts could test that commitment. Then there's recruitment. The ADF struggles to meet manpower targets, a challenge shared by many Western militaries. High-tech warfare requires specialists, not just soldiers, and competition with civilian tech sectors is fierce. Supply chains are another vulnerability. Australia still relies on imported components for much of its defense hardware, from electronics to missile guidance systems. A major regional conflict could disrupt these lifelines. And finally, there's strategy, the delicate balance between autonomy and alliance. As Australia deepens its ties with the US through AUKUS and joint operations, it risks being drawn into conflicts not of its making. Navigating that balance, between sovereignty and solidarity, will define its future. A new national spirit. For all these challenges, there's something undeniable. Australia's defense posture today reflects a quiet confidence, a renewed sense of purpose. The same spirit that saw young men storm the cliffs of Gallipoli and defend Kokoda now drives engineers, pilots, and cyber warriors. Modern Australia understands that strength is not arrogance. It's assurance, the kind that keeps peace through preparedness. When F-35s roar over Darwin, when submarines glide through the depths near Perth, when soldiers train in the jungles of Queensland, they carry more than weapons. They carry the weight of history and the responsibility of a continent. The ADF's transformation isn't just military, it's cultural. It's the story of a nation that refuses to be underestimated again. The final frontier, Australia in 2040. So what will the Australian military look like in 2040? By then, the AUKUS submarines will patrol the oceans. The Hunter-class frigates will be fully operational. The RAF will likely integrate 6th-generation systems, manned and unmanned, networked through AI and satellite links. The Army will rely on modular, high-tech combat brigades with autonomous support units. And Australia's cyber and space commands will play as critical a role as the Navy or Air Force. It will be a force defined not by numbers but by reach. Not by mass but by precision. Not by imitation but by innovation. The world often measures power in size, in the number of tanks, aircraft, or troops. But Australia measures it differently. In resilience. In readiness. In its ability to shape outcomes before crises begin. By 2040, Australia may not be a superpower, but it will be something equally vital. A stabilizer. A force that balances power in one of the most volatile regions on Earth. And that, in many ways, is the truest form of strength. The power of the Australian military is not just in its weapons or alliances. It's in its will. A will born in the trenches of Gallipoli, hardened in the jungles of New Guinea, and reborn in the shipyards of the 21st century. Australia may not seek dominance, but it will always seek preparedness. And in an age of uncertainty, that preparedness is its power. This has been Doctrine of War. Thank you for watching our deep dive into the power of the Australian military. If you haven't yet, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, so you don't miss our next exploration into the rising powers reshaping the modern battlefield. Because in the end, knowledge is the greatest weapon of all.